The people that are really going out on a limb and sticking their head above the parapet, as they say, you can expect a lot of arrows. In science, if you feel confident, you keep going through the controversy. You have to challenge the status quo, question authority. That's what you need. You need those people. I think I was just interested in nutrition, right from the word go. My grandparents were interested. You know, they were young adults in the era when vitamins and minerals were being discovered. So they would kind of talk to me about it as a child. By the time I was a teenager, I was going through the food composition tables.
We both did the same first degree, although I was 2 years ahead. She was top of her year, so I knew about her. After she finished, she wanted to do a PhD, and she came and did a PhD with me. Yeah.
That idea that you could have a sugar high and a sugar low, and that food was responsible, that idea was a little fringe in the 1980s. So it was completely provocative, controversial research.
Jennie is interested in the glycaemic index, and I've sort of come at it from the clinical aspects. Robust discussions at times about, you know, one another's opinions.
But she then basically took that concept and grew it and publicised it.
Right from the beginning, I was happy to talk to the press, and that was not normal for academics. They think that, you know, the press and the layperson can't understand their language.
So she's sold now nearly 5 million books, and she's the one, I think, responsible for really pushing the concept of glycaemic index into the public domain.
I was aware as a teenager that my hearing wasn't as good as my friends. Dad was a GP, so it was easy to arrange a hearing test, and lo and behold, mild hearing loss, but it was progressive. Every researcher, every academic is expected to present their research at conferences. It was an outside indicator. Your research mattered and other people wanted to hear about it.
So it was becoming difficult, and she was sort of withdrawing. You don't really feel part of the group or part of the discussion.
I was missing things even one-to-one. Some men that I talked to had a moustache and a beard, and I would have a half-hour conversation with them, and I would not understand a word. And somehow I was just hoping the conversation would come to the end. It was like you being given something to read every day that was in font size 5. You know, it would be, you could do it, but it would be really tough to do it for 8 hours a day.
I'm very aware of this because my wife is also deaf, and you can see how someone who's profoundly deaf shuts off, you know.
And you miss out on so much of the conversation that you're just the quiet person at the restaurant table. I have the most wonderful marriage to a man who I think would have been beside me, I think, even if I was stone deaf.
Well, I think that if she'd gone completely deaf and that was her course, it would have been tough. Relationships, career-wise, interaction with kids and family. She wanted to be engaged, you know, and it's very hard when you've got that type of hearing loss to be engaged.
I was thinking, I've got to find a job which allows me to do something in this field without needing to hear. I saw no other future. But then, just by chance, I'd met someone who had a similar hearing loss. She just decided to have a cochlear implant. And I'd been reading about them, but what I was reading was that you couldn't have a hearing aid in one ear and a cochlear implant in the other ear. That would confuse the brain. Her attitude is, what nonsense, I'm going to do it. She went ahead, got this cochlear implant, said it's terrific.
And we were quite impressed. It made quite a big difference to her. So we started to look into it.
So about 3 months later, I decided that I would have one too.
Then she got the first implant in the right ear, which was the deaf ear.
I think the turning point was this lady. She was just a role model for me. She was unorthodox. So I think we all need role models. From the 8-week mark, you can see, if you just look at all for the time being, you can see that we've explained to me right from the beginning, because it had been deaf for 10 years, the nerve pathways would have kind of been switched off for a long, long time. It's just like if you were in a hospital bed for 10 years, you couldn't just jump up and walk. Felt like I was on an exciting journey, that gradually things would get better. I was probably about 6 weeks after the operation, and I said to my husband, say something with your hand in front of your mouth, like this, and I'll try to repeat it. And I did, and I won't tell you what he said, okay? He was being rude. That made me realise I was coming up gradually, very gradually.
It just went better and better and better.
She then became more confident again. You know, the Jennie that I remember of 40 years ago. It's an opening of a door.
Her career just started to take off and off and off.
The fact that I could hear more, my confidence soared. Things fall into place when you're confident. You know, story of the glycaemic index, something everyone wanted to hear about. I just started accepting invitations. It was like jump leads to a flat battery. And it really was like that. It just jump-started everything. There were times when I cried all the way home on a plane because of what someone said, but it wasn't because they weren't saying something about my deafness. They were saying something about the glycaemic index. I just love music now. It's really one of the nicest thing I can do is sit down and listen to music. So the rain sounds lovely to me, and the kookaburra, the fact that I can hear it. John, my husband, feeds all these lorikeets in the morning and the evening, and they make a big racket. And I guess I'm lucky to hear the racket. Graham Clark's idea that you could put an electrode in the cochlea and reproduce human language was considered outrageous. So he's an inspiration to me, that you keep going through the controversy.
As far as I'm concerned, she's basically overcome her disability. Now, it's got to be the most cost-effective medical intervention that I'm aware of, and I spent a lot of my career doing health economics. It's a restoration of a sense.
What I found was confidence, clearly, something to be really proud about as an Australian, and I was getting my career back on path. In my family were able to talk to me and have an intelligent conversation. So a lot found. And me, of course, I can be me.